Our first story comes to us from Reddit user Gamel Frank, and the post is called, "I'm a long haul trucker. I stopped for a lost kid on a deserted highway in the dead of night. What I saw attached to him and the question he asked is why I don't drive anymore." This happened a few years back. I was doing a long haul, mostly cross-country routes. That kinda takes you through vast stretches of nothing. You know the ones, where the radio turns to static for hours and the only sign of life is the occasional pair of headlights going the other way. I was young, eager for the miles, the money, didn't mind the solitude, or so I thought. The route I was on took me across a long, desolate stretch of highway that ran between the border of two large governmental territories. I don't want to say exactly where, but think big, empty spaces, lots of trees, not much else. It was notorious among drivers for being a dead zone, no signal, no towns for 100 miles either side, and prone to weird weather. Most guys try to hit it during daylight, but schedules are schedules. Mine had me crossing it deep in the night. I remember the feeling, utter blackness outside the sweep of my headlights. The kind of dark that feels like it's pressing in on the cab. The only sounds were the drones of the diesel engine, the hiss of the air brakes now and then, and the rhythmic thrum of the tires on asphalt. Hypnotic. Too hypnotic. I've been driving for about 10 hours, with a short break a few states back. Coffee was wearing off. The dashboard lights were a dull green glow, comforting in a way, but also making the darkness outside seem even more absolute. My eyelids felt like they had lead weights attached. You fight it, you know. Slap your face, roll the window down for a blast of cold air, crank up whatever music you can find that hasn't dissolved into static. I was doing all of that. It must have been around 2 or 3 a.m. I was in that weird state where you're not quite asleep, but not fully awake either. Like your brain is running on low power mode. The white lines on the road were starting to blur together, stretching and warping. Standard fatigue stuff. I remember blinking hard, trying to refocus. That's when I saw it. Or thought I saw it. Just a flicker at the edge of my headlights, on the right shoulder of the road. Small, low to the ground. For a split second, I registered a shape, vaguely human-like, and then it was gone, swallowed by the darkness as I passed. My first thoughts? Deer, or a coyote. Common enough, but it hadn't moved like an animal. It had been upright. My brain, sluggish as it was, tried to process it. Too small for an adult, too still for an animal startled by a rig. Then the logical part, the part that was still trying to keep me safe on the road, chimed in. You're tired. Seeing things happens. And I almost accepted that. I really did. Shook my head, took a swig of lukewarm water from the bottle beside me, kept my eyes glued to the road ahead. The image, though, it kinda stuck. A small, upright shape, like a child. No way, I told myself. Out here? Middle of nowhere? Middle of the night? Impossible. Kids don't just wander around on interterritorial highways at 3 a.m. It had to be a trick of the light, a bush, my eyes playing games. I've seen weirder things born of exhaustion. Shadows that dance, trees that look like figures. It's a part of the job when you're pushing limits. I drove on maybe another 30 minutes, the image fading. My rational mind started to win. Just a figment. Then I glanced at my passenger side mirror. Habit, always checking. And my blood went cold. Not just cold. It felt like it turned to slush. There, illuminated faintly by the red glow of my trailer lights receding into the distance, was the reflection of a small figure. Standing on the shoulder of the road, exactly where I thought I'd seen something. It wasn't a bush. It wasn't a shadow. It was small, and it was definitely standing there, unmoving, as my truck pulled further and further away. My heart started hammering against my ribs. This wasn't fatigue. This was real. There was someone, something back there, and it looked tiny. Every instinct screamed at me, danger, wrong, keep going. But another voice, the one that makes us human, I suppose, whispered something else. A kid? Alone out here? What if they're hurt? Lost? I fought with myself for a few seconds that stretched into an eternity. The image in the mirror was getting smaller, fainter. If I didn't act now, they'd be lost to the darkness again. God, the thought of leaving a child out there, if that's what it was. Against my better judgment, against that primal urge to just floor it, I made a decision. I slowed the rig. The air brakes hissed like angry snakes. Pulled over to the shoulder. The truck groaned in protest. Put on my hazards, their rhythmic flashing cutting into the oppressive blackness. Then I did what you're never supposed to do with a full trailer on the narrow shoulder. I started to reverse. Slowly, carefully, my eyes flickered between the mirrors, trying to keep the trailer straight, trying to relocate that tiny figure. The crunch of gravel under the tires sounded unnaturally loud. It took a minute, maybe two, but it felt like an hour. The red glow of my tail lights eventually washed over the spot again, and there it was, a kid. I stopped the truck so my cab was roughly alongside them, maybe 10 feet away. Switched on the high beams, hoping to get a better look, and also to make myself clearly visible as just a truck, not something else. The kid was small, really small. I'd guess maybe 6, 7 years old. Hard to tell in the glare. They were just standing there, on the very edge of the gravel shoulder, right where the trees began. The woods pressed in close on this stretch of road, tall, dark pines, and dense undergrowth that looked like a solid black wall just beyond the reach of my lights. The kid wasn't looking at me. They were facing sort of parallel to the road, just walking, like they were on a stroll, completely oblivious to the massive 18-wheeler that had just pulled up beside them, engine rumbling, lights blazing. They were wearing what looked like pajamas, thin, light-colored pajamas. In the chill of the night, no cold, no shoes that I could see. My mind reeled. This was wrong. So many levels of wrong. I killed the engine. The sudden silence was almost deafening, amplifying the crickets, the rustling of leaves in the woods from a breeze that I couldn't quite feel in the cab. My heart was still there, still thumping, a weird mix of fear and adrenaline, and a dawning sense of responsibility. I rolled down the window. The night air hit me, cold and damp, carrying the scent of pine and wet earth. "Hey," I called out. My voice sounded hoarse, too loud in the quiet. "Hey, kid." No response. They just kept walking, one small, barefoot in front of the other, at a pace that was taking them absolutely nowhere fast. Their head was down slightly. I couldn't see their face properly. "Kid, are you okay?" I tried again, louder this time. Slowly, so slowly, the kid stopped. They didn't turn their head fully, just sort of angled it a fraction, enough that I could see a pale sliver of cheek in the spill of my headlights. Still not looking at me, still ignoring the multi-ton machine idling beside them. A prickle of unease ran down my spine, not the normal kind of unease. This was deeper, colder. Animals act weird sometimes, but kids? A lost kid should be scared, relieved, something. This was nothing. "What are you doing out here all alone?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, friendly, like you're supposed to do with a scared child, even though this one didn't seem scared at all. "It's the middle of the night." Silence. Just the sound of their bare feet scuffling softly on the gravel as they took another step, then another. As if my presence was a minor inconvenience, a background noise they were choosing to ignore. This wasn't right. My internal alarm bells were clanging louder now. My hand hovered near the gear stick. Part of me wanted to slam it into drive and get the hell out of there. But the image of this tiny child, alone, possibly in shock. I couldn't just leave, could I? "Where are your parents?" I pushed, my voice a bit sharper than I intended. "Are you lost?" Finally, the kids stopped walking completely. They turned their head just a little more, still not looking directly at my cab, more towards the front of my truck, into the glare of the headlights. I could see their face a bit better now, pale, featureless in the harsh lights, like a porcelain doll. Small, dark smudges that might have been eyes, no expression, none. Not fear, not sadness, not relief, just blank, an unreadable slate. Then a voice, small, thin, like the rustle of dry leaves. "Lost." Just that one word. It hung in the air between us. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by a fresh wave of concern. Okay, lost. That's something I can deal with. "Okay, kid, lost is okay. We can fix Lost. Where do you live? Where were you going? The kid finally, slowly, turned their heads fully towards my cab, towards me. I still couldn't make out much detail in their face. The angle, the light, something was obscuring it, keeping it in a sort of shadowy vagueness despite the headlights. But I could feel their gaze. It wasn't like a normal kid's look. There was weight to it, an intensity that was deeply unsettling for such a small form. Home, the kid said, that same thin, reedy voice. Trying to go home. Right, home. Where is home? I asked, leaning forward a bit, trying to project reassurance. Is it near here? Did you wander off a campsite? A car? There was no campsite for miles. No broken down cars on the shoulder. I knew that. The kid didn't answer that question directly. Instead, they took a small step towards the truck, then another. My hand tense on the door handle, ready to open it. To offer what? A ride? Shelter? I don't know. It's cold out here, I said, stating the obvious. You should get in. We can get you warm, and I can call for help when we get to a spot with signal. My CB was useless, just static. My phone had shown no service for the last hour. The kid stopped about 5 feet from my passenger door, still in that pale, thin, pajama-like outfit, barefoot on the sharp gravel. They should be shivering, crying. They were doing neither. Can you help me? The kid asked. The voice was still small, but there was a different inflection to it now, less flat, a hint of something else. Pleading, maybe? Yeah, of course. I can help you, I said. That's why I stopped. Where are your parents? How did you get here? The kid tilted their head, a jerky, unnatural little movement. They're waiting. At home. Okay, and where's home? Which direction? I gestured vaguely up and down the empty highway. The kid didn't point down the road. There was maybe a small subtle gesture with their head, a little nod towards the trees, towards the impenetrable darkness of the woods lining the highway. In there, the kid said. My stomach clenched. In the woods? Your home is in the woods? Lost, the kid repeated, as if that explained everything. Trying to find the path. It's dark. Yeah, it's very dark, I agreed, my eyes scanning the tree line. It looked like a solid wall of black. No sign of any path, any habitation, just dense, old-grown forest. The kind of place you could get lost in for days, even in daylight. Can you come out? The kid asked. Help me look? It's not far. I can't see it from here. Every rational thought in my head screamed no. Get out of the truck? In the middle of nowhere? In the pitch dark with this strange kid? Who wanted me to get into those dark woods? No, absolutely not. But the kid looked so small, so vulnerable. If there was even a tiny chance they were telling the truth, that their house was just a little way in, and they were genuinely lost. I don't think that's a good idea, buddy, I said, trying to sound gentle. It's dangerous in there at night, for the both of us. Best thing is for you to hop in here with me. We'll drive until we get a signal, and then we'll call the police. Or the rangers. They can help you find your home properly. The kid just stood there, that blank, unreadable face fixed on me. But it's right there, they insisted, their voice a little more insistent now. Just a little way. I can almost see it. If you can just step out, the light of your door would help. My skin was crawling. There was something profoundly wrong with this scenario. The way they were trying to coax me out, the lack of normal emotional response, the pajamas, the bare feet, the woods. I looked closer at the kid, trying to pierce that strange vagueness around their features. My headlights were bright, but it looked like they absorbed the light rather than reflect it. Their eyes, I still couldn't really see their eyes, just dark hollows. I think you should really get in the truck, I said, my voice firmer now. It's warmer in here. We can figure it out together. The kid took another step closer. They were almost at my running board now. Please, they said, that reedy voice again. My legs hurt. I can't walk much further. If you can just help me a little. Just the path. My internal conflict was raging. My trucker instincts, honed by years of seeing weird stuff and hearing weirder stories at truck stops, were blaring warnings. But the human part, the part that saw a child in distress, was still there, still arguing. I was tired, so damn tired. Maybe I wasn't thinking straight. Maybe this is all some bizarre misunderstanding. I squinted, trying to see past the kid, towards the tree line they indicated. Was there a faint trail I was missing? A flicker of light deep in the woods? No, nothing. Just blackness. Solid, unyielding blackness. And then I saw it. It wasn't something I saw clearly at first. It was more like an anomaly, a disturbance in the darkness behind the kid. The kid was standing with their back mostly to the woods, facing my truck. Behind them, the darkness of the forest was absolute, or it should have been. But there was something connected to them, something that stretched from the small of their back, from under the thin pajama top, and disappearing into the deeper shadow of the trees. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, a weird shadow cast by my headlight hitting them at an odd angle. Maybe a rope they were dragging? A piece of clothing snagged on a branch? I leaned forward, trying to get a clear view. The kid was still talking, their voice a low, persistent murmur. "It's not far. Please, just help me. I'm so cold." But I really wasn't listening to the words anymore. I was focused on that thing behind them. It wasn't a rope. It wasn't a shadow. It was a tube. A long, dark, thick tube. It seemed to emerge directly from the kid's lower back. Impossibly seamless. It was dark matte, like a strip of the night itself given form, and it snaked away from the child, maybe 10, 15 feet, before disappearing into the inky blackness between two thick pine trunks. It wasn't rigid. It seemed to have a slight, almost imperceptible flexibility, like a massive, sluggish umbilical cord made of shadow. It didn't reflect any light from my headlamps. It just absorbed it. My breath hitched in my throat. My blood, which had been cold before, now felt like it had frozen solid. It wasn't just wrong. This was impossible, unnatural. The kid was still trying to coax me. "Are you gonna help me? It's just there. You're so close." My voice, when I finally found it, was barely a whisper. I couldn't take my eyes off that appendage. "Kid, what is that? Behind you?" The kid flinched. Not a big movement, just a tiny, almost imperceptible tightening of their small frame. Their head, which had been tilted pleadingly, straightened. The blankness on their face seemed to solidify. "What's what?" they asked, their voice suddenly devoid of that pleading tone. It was flat again, colder. That thing," I stammered, pointing with a shaking finger. "Coming out of your back, going into the woods. What is that?" The kid didn't turn to look. They didn't need to. Their gaze, those dark, unseen eyes, bored into me. "It's nothing," they said. The voice was still small, but it had a new edge to it, a hardness. "You're seeing things. You're tired." They were using my own earlier rationalization against me. "No," I said, my voice gaining a tremor of conviction born of the sheer terror. "No, I'm not. I see it. It's right there. It's connected to you." The kid was silent for a long moment. The only sound was the thumping of my own heart, so loud I was sure they could hear it. The crickets had stopped. The wind seemed to die down, and a natural stillness fell over the scene. Then, the kid's face began to change. It wasn't a dramatic movie monster transformation. It was far more subtle and far more terrifying. The blankness didn't leave, but it sharpened. The pale skin seemed to tighten over the bones. The area where the eyes were, those dark smudges, seemed to deepen, to become more shadowed, more intense, and a flicker of something ancient and utterly alien passed across their features. It wasn't human anger. It was something older, colder, and infinitely more patient, now strained to its limit. The air in my calves suddenly felt thick, heavy, hard to breathe. "Just come out of the truck," the kid said, and the voice, oh God, the voice. It wasn't a small, reedy voice of a kid anymore. It was deeper, resonant, with a strange, grating undertone, like stones grinding together. It was coming from the small frame, but it was impossibly large, impossibly old. It vibrated in my chest. Come out, now. The command was absolute. My hand, which had been hovering near the gear stick, now gripped it like a lifeline. My other hand fumbled for the ignition key, which I had stupidly left in. What are you? I choked out, staring at the monstrous thing playing dress up in a child's form, at the dark, pulsating tube that was its anchor to the shadows. The kid's head tilted again, that jerky, unnatural movement. The expression on its face, if you can call it that, was one of pure, unadulterated annoyance, contempt, like I was a particularly stupid insect it failed to swat. And then it spoke, in that same terrible, resonant, grinding voice. The words it said are buried in my memory, colder than any winter night. Why? It rasped, the sound seeming to scrape the inside of my skull. The fuck, are humans smarter now? That was it. The one sentence, the sheer, cosmic frustration in it. The implications of past encounters of easy prey, the utter alien nature of it. I didn't think, I didn't plan, I reacted. Primal fear, the kind that bypasses all higher brain function, took over. My hand twisted the key, the diesel engine roared back to life. A sudden, violent explosion of sound in the terrifying stillness. The kid, the thing, actually recoiled, a small, jerky step back. The expression, that awful, tightened, ancient look, intensified. I slammed the gear stick into drive. My foot stomped on the accelerator. The truck lurched forward, tires spinning on the gravel for a terrifying second before they bit the asphalt. I didn't look at it. I couldn't. I stared straight ahead, my knuckles wide on the steering wheel, the whole cab vibrating around me. The truck surged forward, gaining speed with agonizing slowness. For a horrible moment, I imagined the tube thing whipping out, trying to snag the trailer, to pull me back, to drag me into those woods. I imagined a small figure, with its ancient, terrible voice, somehow keeping pace. I risked a glance in my driver's side mirror. It was standing there, on the shoulder, unmoving. The headlights of my departing truck cast its small silhouette into sharp relief. And behind it, the dark tube was still visible, a thick, obscene cord snaking back into the endless night of the forest. It didn't seem to be retracting or moving. It just was. The thing didn't pursue. It just stood and watched me go. And that, somehow, was almost worse. The sheer confidence, the patience. Like it knew there would be others. Or maybe it was just annoyed that this particular attempt had failed. I drove. I don't know for how long. I just drove. My foot was welded to the floor. The engine screamed. I watched the speedometer needle climb, far past any legal or safe limit for the rig of that size. On a road that dark, I didn't care. The image of that thing, that child shape with its dark umbilical to the woods, and that voice, that awful, grinding voice asking its horrifying question, was burned on the inside of my eyelids. I must have driven for an hour, maybe more, at speeds that should have gotten me killed or arrested, before the adrenaline started to fade, replaced by a bone-deep, shaking exhaustion that had been more profound than any fatigue I'd ever known. My hands were trembling so violently I could barely keep the wheel straight. Tears were streaming down my face, not from sadness, but from sheer, unadulterated terror and relief. When the first hit of dawn started to gray the eastern sky, and my phone finally beeped, indicating a single bar of service, I pulled over at the first wide spot I could find. I practically fell out the cab, vomiting onto the gravel until there was nothing left but dry heaves. I sat there on the cold ground, shaking, for a long time, watching the sun come up, trying to convince myself it had all been a dream, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion. But I knew it wasn't. The detail of that tube, the voice, the question. You don't hallucinate something that specific, that coherent, that utterly alien. I never reported it. Who would I report it to? What would I say? Officer, I saw a little kid who was actually an ancient cosmic horde tethered to the woods by a nightmare umbilical cord. And it got mad because I didn't want to be its dinner. They'd have me locked up, breathalyzed me, drug tested me, sent me for a psych eval. I finished that run on autopilot, dropped the load, drove my rig back to the yard, and I quit. I told them I was burned out, needed a break. They tried to convince me to stay, offered me different routes, more pay. I just couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that kid, that tube, those woods. Every dark road felt like a trap. And I found a local job, something that keeps me home at night. I didn't drive in remote areas anymore if I could help it, especially not at night. I still have nightmares. Sometimes, when I'm very tired, driving home late from somewhere, I'll see a flicker at the edge of my vision, on the side of the road, and my heart will try to beat its way out of my chest. I don't know what that thing was. An alien? A demon? Something else? Something that didn't fit into our neat little categories? All I know is that it's out there, and it's patient, and it seems to have learned that its old tricks aren't as effective as they used to be. Why the fuck are humans smarter now? That question haunts me. It implies they weren't always. It implies that, once upon a time, we were easier. That maybe, just maybe, people like me, tired alone on dark roads, used to step out of their cab when asked, and were never seen again. So, if you're ever driving on one of those long, lonely stretches of road, deep in the night, and you see something you can't explain, maybe just keep driving. Maybe being smarter now means knowing when not to stop, knowing when to ignore that little voice telling you to help, because what's asking for help might not be what it seems. Stay safe out there, and for God's sake, stay on well-lit roads. Our next story comes to us from Reddit user r/itssunday, and the post is called, "I was paid $50K to dine with a stranger." I was broke as shit, flatlined financially, emotionally, existentially. Whether by poor choice in my youth or plain old shit luck, life spat me out straight from high school and onto the streets. Drugs followed, rehab, then relapse. I drifted from couches to shelters to squatting in abandoned homes. Steady income? Never heard of it. So when I saw the email, I almost deleted it without reading. I figured it was just another rejection from one of my poorly written job applications until the header caught my attention. Dinner with me for $50,000. I'm not exactly attractive, even before addiction wrecked the few good features I had. I didn't have much going for me. My eyes had sunken into my skull like they wanted to disappear. My skin had forgotten what hydration felt like. So this email? Ridiculous. I had no looks, no resume, no justification for being chosen. But I just left the shelter, and 50 grand was a dream bigger than anything I'd ever held. So I read on. It was from a domain I've never seen before, shepardk@snkcompunctionfirm.com. The message read, "Dear recipient, I trust this message finds you well. I invite you to join me for dinner at... This is not a romantic offer. You will be compensated handsomely for your time, provided you adhere to the following terms. Remain for the full meal until I pay the bill and escort you out. Do not pay for anything yourself. Wear formal attire. If you don't own a suit, one will be provided at the entrance. It will fit. Any breach will void all compensation. To accept, reply. A date and time will be sent. To decline, regard this message." Did it seem insane? Absolutely, but desperation makes fool of us all. The kind of fool that doesn't ask for explanation, just a fork and a seat. So I replied, "Hello Shepard, thank you for your generous offer. I accept your terms and I will be there. May I ask a few questions about this proposal? Again, thank you." I didn't expect a response, maybe a phishing scam, maybe nothing. But seconds later, a reply came. "Monday at 6 p.m. at... Questions may be asked at dinner. Thank you for your cooperation." More cryptic bullshit. That's when I gained the smallest amount of common sense and decided to look into whoever this guy was. This was clearly his business email, so I googled the domain, SNK Compunction Firm. I was expecting some big group of lawyers off of the name alone, but nope, no law firm. Just a single office tucked in a strip mall. No products, no service. Just a photo of the branch manager, despite the fact that the office barely looked big enough for 2 people. And the title implied multiple locations, yet I couldn't even find a second one. What did they do? Solutions? No specifics, just that one word. I thought about backing out, probably should've, but when you've got nothing left, hesitance starts looking like a luxury. I had nothing to lose, so I took the chance. Between drug-fueled stupors and getting my ass kicked out once or twice, Monday crept up on me like bruises do. Slow, unseen, then sudden. I didn't have anything formal, so I threw on the only white button-up shirt I owned and some gray slacks. Both had stains I couldn't explain, and no iron had graced their surface in years. Still, they were the fanciest clothes I had. None of it mattered. The second I hobbled into the restaurant, the greeter, if you could even call him that, handed me a dry, clean suit without a word and pointed to the bathroom. I took the hint. This suit seemed expensive, real Men's Warehouse type shit. It fit perfectly, just like the email said. Too perfectly, actually. The cuffs landed exactly at my wrist bones. The collar rested like it knew my neck shape already. I didn't have the time or money to question it. I walked back out. The place had a strange charm. Soft lighting spilled across the tablecloths in smooth pools of warmth. Ornate picture frames lined the walls, filled with abstract paintings that felt a bit too familiar. Wood trim hugged every surface. Big glittery curtains hung heavy like a wedding reception. It smelled like artificial plants and faded fabric. Soft jazz floated through the air and brushed against my ears. As I scanned the room, I realized something unsettling. When I walked in, there were at least 4 tables of people laughing and enjoying themselves. It had been noisy and lively, but now, silent, empty. Like the bell had rung that only I hadn't heard. Just a few bartenders, the mute greeter, and one bald man in a suit eerily similar to mine. I already knew who he was. His photo was the only thing of the note I'd found when looking up the domain, the branch manager. I approached his table, and before I could ask if he was expecting me, he gestured to the chair across from him. He was an older man, maybe 50, with sad, droopy eyes. His nose was so thin and pointy, it looked like a shark's fin. He seemed to have no nostrils at all. His jowls fluttered slightly as he spoke in a soft, low tone. "Thank you for coming, young man. It's good to finally see you," he said, extending an arm for a handshake. I tried my best to sound steady and firm, despite my rising anxiety. Thank you, sir." The conversation that followed was surprisingly pleasant. The food was already better than anything I'd ever had, decadent and strangely nostalgic, as if it had been made just for me. He asked me about my childhood, my current working conditions, and my family life. Most of these memories weren't pleasant, but it felt good to have someone simply listen. I reached a point where I started letting my guard down. He never interrupted, never judged, just watched. Then he got serious. He grabbed my wrist as I lifted my fork. His grip was ice cold but steady, and his tone dropped. "What is something you wish you had never done?" "What?" I was shocked by his sudden seriousness. He didn't respond. He just stared, still and waiting. I swallowed. "I stole from my mom when she was dying. I was supposed to take care of her and protect her, but I spent her money on the stuff she told me to quit." A waitress appeared silently, depositing a small porcelain bowl before me. Inside sat a single seared scallop resting on a streak of bright red pepper coulis, its color staining the white plate like the shame I carried. The scallop's tender flesh gave way to a flash of heat, a reminder that some wounds fully never heal. A whisper of lemon zest lifted the flavor. He nodded, no judgment in his eyes, only something quietly accepting, then stood and excused himself to the restroom. As he left, I took a breath and tried to shake off the moment. Then I noticed it. The chandelier above us had one more bulb. Just one. The light it cast bent slightly at the edges, stretching the shadows under our plates. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, back to normal. Mostly. The jazz had slowed by a fraction. Notes now lingered a second longer than they should. He returned, looking subtly altered. His right side appeared younger and tighter. The left side remained unchanged. A crease near his mouth had vanished, and his smile felt less weighted. He asked again, gently, "What's the kindest thing you've ever done?" I told him about a homeless kid I had let sleep in my car on a freezing night. I didn't know his name and didn't want anything from him. I just locked the doors and stayed up until morning in case someone tried anything. While his gaze lingered, another course arrived. A hollowed apple cradled a warm butternut squash soup, its sweetness tempered by sage oil. The apple's crisp rim framed the velvety broth, echoing the way I had sheltered that boy from the cold. Each spoonful felt like a soft promise of safety in a world so devoid of it. This time, as he listened, something in his face responded. His left eye seemed brighter, and the left side softened. He looked younger somehow. Maybe the lights was playing a trick, or maybe the room had grown darker. He asked another question. "What's the worst lie you've ever told?" I hesitated. I had promised myself I'd never recall this memory, yet I felt compelled to tell the old man. When someone close to me overdosed, I could have saved them. I saw them, but was frozen in fear, thinking I could be just like them. When the police came, I told them he was already dead when I got there. He nodded again, still no judgment, just listening. I'm not sure how, but as I spoke, a new corpse appeared. A translucent steamed dumpling sat alone, its skin almost too delicate to touch. The moment I pierced it, a smoky, chilly broth gushed out, scorching my tongue with the sting of my lies. The gentle wrapper dissolved into nothing, leaving only the burn of a secret I thought I'd buried permanently. Then he stood and walked away, slower this time. His chair creaked slightly as he rose, and the floor beneath it curved outwards in a way that made no physical sense. As I waited, I saw the wallpaper behind the bar began to bubble faintly, like heat was pressing against it from inside. The curtains seemed heavier. The picture frame on the wall had begun to tilt, each at a different angle. Not much, but enough to notice, enough to make you wonder. The waitstaff didn't change plates. The glasses refilled themselves, and I started to notice something impossible. Everyone in the room had his face. Not exactly, but similar. Like a family of clones degraded with each repetition. The bartender blinked with one bulging eye, and the hostess' smile sagged like melting wax. When he came back, the distortion had grown wider. His jaw was uneven, one side shriveled, the other taut as barbed wire. The contrast on his face was made more than physical now. It radiated something deeper, like halves of a personality that couldn't agree. He sat, eyes scanning me as if measuring the weight behind my silence. I wasn't sure if he was evaluating my soul or just admiring the way panic settled in the corner of my posture. His voice arrived softly, almost reverent. "What memory do you miss the most?" It took me a moment, not because I didn't know, but because I was afraid to admit how fragile the truth had become. "I used to swim in Lake Michigan every summer," I said slowly. "With friends, we'd throw ourselves off docks and scream about sea monsters and cold sandwiches. It was stupid, but I felt safe, like I didn't owe anything to anyone." Shepard's good eye glistened. A tear formed and trailed down the brighter side of his face. It lingered at his chin and disappeared into the voids. The darker side remained unflinching, its socket almost hollow now. I stared at him, unsure whether to thank him or run. He didn't speak. He just stood, his movement slower this time, calculated, weighty. The chair creaked like it hated being left alone. This bathroom break felt longer. The silence thickened, and the music was barely audible. The overhead lights dimmed again, and this time, they pulsed faintly. One of the picture frames fell sideways. The bartender wiped the same spot over and over, face devoid of emotion, eyes bulging slightly. The wallpaper near the entrance was peeling, tiny tendrils reaching outward like roots. A fly circled the wine glass beneath my plate, but never landed, looping endlessly. I felt my chest tightened. Shepard returned. This time he didn't sit. He loomed. His face was wrong. The symmetry had given up. One eye bulged fully, twitching in quick spasms. The other was practically sunken. His mouth hung slightly open, but no breath escaped. He said nothing for a few seconds, just watched me. Then finally, "Would you like dessert?" I stood, almost instinctively. "I think I need to use the bathroom," I said. He nodded slowly. "Take your time." The bathroom was too quiet, the mirror too clear. I leaned forward, expecting to see my own ruin reflected, but instead, behind me in the mirror, Shepard waited. Not in the room, but in the reflection. His body was stretched, taller than before, suit shimmering like the surface of a pond. He smiled, both eyes twitching violently. I didn't scream or move. I just stepped back out, numb. The dining room was nearly gone. The wall had peeled upwards towards the ceiling. Tables melted into spiraled masses of dark wood and cloth. The floor ripped like liquid stone. The curtains had vanished entirely, leaving a strange static haze where windows had once been. Shepard stood at the center, calm. "You've done well, young man," he said. "Repentance is never easy. The hardest part is accepting that you are no longer part of the world you knew." My knees threatened to give out. I wanted to argue, to scream, to run, but nothing in my body responded the way it used to. Everything had slowed except him. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask. He smiled gently, like a father comforting a child who had just asked the final, fated question. "This meal," he said, "is not payment, it's passage." "No," I whispered. I walked here. I remember the shelter, the email." "You remember the drug?" he said, cutting gently across my denial. "And the stall in the diner? You remember how cold the towel was? You remember how long it took for someone to find you?" I shook my head as if it might rattle the truth loose, but it didn't help. My legs wouldn't move. "All we offer," he continued, "is a moment. One last conversation. One last taste. One last confession." The last of the room flaked away like ash in the wind. The table in front of us dissolved into nothing. Steam hissed upwards from cracks in the floor that hadn't been there seconds before. Shepard extended his hand again. The suit he wore shimmered strangely, colors shifting like moonlight on ocean currents. Patterns swirled across the threads. Faces, maybe, or shadows. I couldn't be sure. "You did well," he said quietly. "You were honest. That's all we ask." I felt tears on my cheek, though I don't know how they got there. "What happens now?" Shepard looked over his shoulder. Behind him, the restaurant was finally gone. In its place, a hallway of shifting doors, some open, some pulsing with warm light, others dimmed and sealed. "Now," he said, "you choose."